Yeah, Jeff.
What was your first ElfQuest book you officially were working on?
The first book I did, now I got the job ElfQuest actually from being Krillin on Dragon Ball Z. I was doing a signing in Comic-Con, and it was the first big major signing that we did. It was me and Chris Sabat, and Sean Schimmel, the voice of Goku, Stephanie Nadolny, the voice of Gohan, and me, and it was awesome. But because I'd gone to Comic-Con for years trying to, as a self-publisher, trying to sell my work, right? And getting a lot of rejection because nobody knew who I was. So here I am, going to this convention this time, and there's a line that goes forever, right? And I was like, oh wow. And what we didn't know was that the guy who was running our booth had provided no space for us to sign. So he asked the people in the booth next to them if we could put a table in there and let the Dragon Ball Z actors sign in their space. Well, I know that's expensive, that space is expensive. And it turned out it was Wendy and Richard Peeney's space, the creators of ElfQuest. Well, Richard said, no effing way, right? And Wendy said, Dragon Ball Z? Turns out she's a huge fan of Dragon Ball Z. So she said, yeah, put him over here, please. So they set up a table and everything. Well, we were running late because we were having lunch or something, and we sat down and we just started signing immediately. We didn't even look up. We were like, hi. And people kept saying Wendy Peeney over and over. And I went, is she here? They said, yeah, dude, she's right behind you. And I went, huh? And she was over my shoulder going, like that. And I went, oh my God, I'm a fan, I love you. Because I've been reading her since I was 14 years old, you know? And from this point on. So it was so amazing, and when I found out what they had done, allowing us to sign in that space, she started drawing pictures of our characters and giving them to us for gifts. So I went to my room that night and I drew Krillin and Vegeta and Goku and Gohan, looking at her main character Cutter. And I had all these empty voice balloons so that each voice actor could write their thanks for letting us sign in their space personally, because that was a very nice gesture on their part. And I gave it to her the next day, and she said, you draw? And I said, yeah, I have about 10, 12 books published at this point. And she goes, do you want to draw for me? And I went, shit, yes. And like the floor just falls out from underneath me, and I'm just suspended in midair, just floating, and I went, is that a trick question? She said, no, I would love that. And I went, yeah. This is a dream come true. I would love to draw ElfQuest. So I went home and I thought about it, because I had quit drawing comics like 2 years before that time. I'd finally gotten a publisher to publish something, and it got a really good sale run. It was like 5,000 copies sold in the first issue, which is really good for a small publisher, and I had a really good contract with them, so I was going to make a lot of money. I could actually finally live off of this. Well, the publisher took so long getting it to the printer that the distributors canceled the orders. And I was so fed up with comics at that point, I just said, it's run by idiots or evil people, and sometimes both. So I just said, forget it, I don't want to do comics anymore. And now here I am 2 years later, and Wendy Peeney's asking me to draw for her. So I went home and I thought about it, and I realized also that my artwork had kind of reached a ceiling, which was also part of the reason I quit. And I always wanted to study under a master. So I said, Wendy, I'll be happy to draw for you, I'm honored to draw for you, but can we change the terms? She said, what do you want? And I said, I want to study under you. I want to be your apprentice. She said, really? And I said, yeah. Is there any way we can do that? She said, yeah. Move to LA and you'll work at my studio. So I did. I flew back once a month and recorded Krillin, and I worked for her for a year. And in that year, I learned more than 10 years by myself. If you look on my Facebook, it says under education, I went to school at Texas Wesleyan, University of North Texas, but I don't put them on there. I put the Wendy Peeney School of Badass Cartoon. Because that was the greatest education of my life.
What I'm impressed with you about is you always seem to enjoy your art. That you actually seem to enjoy like sketchbooks and stuff like that.
I'm what's called a graphomaniac. I gotta be drawing or I'll go nuts.
Yeah, because I've met artists that are extraordinarily talented, but you got bolted to the chair and you've been doing it.
Yeah, I mean, it can be a grind too. I mean, drawing a comic book, it takes a lot of effort. And I can see how it would wear somebody down after a while. But, like I said, I gotta be doing it or I go nuts. So I'm happy when people throw ideas. Hey, can you draw this? Can you draw this? Right? Yeah, I recently had to raise my price of Sketchapalooza just because it was taking time away from higher paying work and I couldn't afford it. But I still love doing it, so I said, okay, if you guys are willing to pay $20 a sketch, then yeah, I'll do it.
It's still cheap.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was thrilled.
What did you think about the character of Hercule?
Who? What character?
Hercule.
Hercule?
Yeah, what do you
I
think?
love Hercule. Krillin hates him.
Hilarious.
I think Hercule's one of the best characters on the show. Oh, he's back too. There you go. Hi. He snuck in. It was good timing on that. Yeah, I think Hercule's an awesome character. He's like the epitome of wrestler personality, you know? It's awesome. Any other questions? Personally, I like all the really cartoony characters anyway. I mean, most anime voices tend to be like, hi, a very young boy voice that's slightly effeminate, right? And I grew up with Bugs Bunny. I mean, Mel Blanc was my hero. That's who I wanted to be. So when the wackier the characters, the better. Yeah.
So this was a couple years ago, but do you remember any of the episodes of Case Closed that you wrote?
I think I wrote maybe 3 or 4 of those episodes, and honestly, I can't remember. I can't. That was 12 years ago, I think. And at that time, I was writing a lot of scripts for a lot of different shows, and they would just sort of just translate basically and get it on paper. I played the butler several times on that show. A couple of times, actually, the butler did it. Yeah.
You mentioned that one of the shows in your favorite lineup of Toonami was Sailor Moon. What did you think of that show, and how do you think Cloverway did with the dub compared to Deke?
Well, they did a lot better job than the Project A-ko people did. You guys seen Project A-ko? That was one of the first animes I saw that I knew was called anime. And it was before I worked at Funimation, but I thought it was such a cool show. And you find out that this little kid, she's always late for class, even though she has superpowers, and can run at the speed of light or whatever, but she's still late. And then you find out why at the end, which is really cool. If you guys seen it, don't spoil it for me, it's really worth watching. But anyway, I understand why people don't like certain dubs, why it really pisses them off. Because like 5 years later, you can only find it the dub version. I went, oh cool, Project A-ko. And it was horrible. It was the worst dub I'd ever heard. So yeah, I understand that, and I think that's why, I mean, at Funimation, we really try to put, the heart into it, It's funny too, though, because 14 years ago, we were known as the enemy of anime. We were what was killing anime. Those of you who are old enough to remember might have remembered that from different, you shake your head, yeah, yep, I remember that. I remember guys, like these sweaty guys coming over the table going, shivering, and they look at me and go, hey, how do you feel about the fact that you guys are ruining anime? Like, well, I'm sorry if you feel that way, we're doing our best, right? But now we're kind of known as the bastion of quality, right? It completely turned around. But I liked what they did on it, on Sailor Moon. I thought it was a good job.
What did you think of the show itself?
The show itself is
Yeah.
great. Yeah. The concept is awesome. Yeah. Four Kids get a lot of heat, like especially for One Piece, but they were also in the same kind of boat we were with Dragon Ball Z Kai. Because the time slot they were in, they weren't allowed to have cigarettes, so they had to put a lollipop in his mouth. And a lot of things had to be edited for kids. So you really can't put too much on them. And I know it sounds like, oh, that's terrible, right? Why would you do that? You just ruined that show that they had to, otherwise they wouldn't be able to get it on the air. However, luckily for us, we got to recast the show, and I got to be Usopp in it. Yeah?
What was the anime that you first saw that got you into watching anime?
My first anime, I didn't know it was called anime. It was just called a really cool cartoon. And it was called Speed Racer. Yeah, that was a badass show. I love that show so much. I was a little kid, and they didn't make Mach 5 Hot Wheels. But I had a Corvette Hot Wheel that I painted to look like the Mach 5. And it was and years later, I was at it was I think it was a year before Peter Fernandez died. And it was at a Toronto convention, Anime North. And he was there, and he was a really cool guy, right? And I was sitting around the lunch table with a bunch of the staff at the convention and stuff like this. And he shows up, and he looks at me, and he goes, "What are you drinking?" I said, "Whiskey and Coke," and he goes, "Whiskey." Got a bottle of Jack in my room. That's where I'm going from here. And he was such a cool guy, and like we were doing an interview for Canadian National Television, and they were asking me about acting and stuff, and I started going on about Boleslavsky and acting the first 6 lessons and bullshit. And he goes, "I do it for the money." Love this guy. And we're doing a signing later together, and he's right beside me, and he's got all these Mach 5 Hot Wheels, I don't know if they're officially Hot Wheels, but they look just like Hot Wheels, on his table. He signed himself for $50. And I said, "Save me one of those, I've got to have one."
These robes are
All right. Thank you so much.
Oh, hi, we're being filmed.
Oh, no, I have a picture. Dude, that's awesome. Thanks so much.
Hi.